think it is, I think all the examples that are being lifted up today really underline that that is the case. Too often our conversations about workers' rights and reentry are separate, but the interests are, overlapping, they're aligned. If we're gonna ensure that all workers have access to good jobs, then we got to make sure that all workers have access to good jobs. And allowing employers to exploit workers through their workers with records, through underpaid, unsafe, precarious work, that can lower the floor for all workers, impacting wages and working conditions across the board. So we're all in this together. Let's keep that in mind. And so, we can't be satisfied with substandard jobs. It's unfair to the worker. It's unfair to their families, the communities that depend on them. And it detracts from the collective power of all workers. So I think I wanted to start with why it's so important to focus on job quality. But you asked how workers, are exploited. And I think that there are a lot of different ways, but I think the crux of the issue is that when you allow employers to discriminate against workers with records based on convictions that have no real bearing on their ability to do the job, people with records end up rejected over and over again. That pattern makes people more desperate and more easily exploitable. For fear of being fired, people with records, are less likely to complain about wages or working conditions. I'll lift up one specific example from New York. It's an especially stark example. It was the body shop industry in New York. What body shops are, what they call themselves, I should say, are private labor brokers that target workers on parole and supervision for dangerous temporary construction jobs. And it took workers and their local union, Laborers 79, demanding regulation of that industry to start to address the exploitation they were facing. I think, frankly, we expect people with records to be grateful for even the worst job opportunities. And, in addition to, just the overall discrimination, there are some things that exacerbate that problem. Minnetonka touched on one, probation, parole requirements. People can be required to maintain employment as a condition of their parole or probation, under the ultimate threat of reincarceration. People with records have court-ordered debt to repay. People have curfews. They have monitoring requirements that can limit their job options. A lack of savings to fall back on. Often people with records are denied, the social safety nets that the rest of us can rely on if we don't have a job. SNAP, TANF, unemployment insurance. And workers on parole and probation can even be legally prohibited from going on strike to protest, bad working conditions. So there's a lot of ways that the power is skewed, and as a result, we set people with records up to be exploited.